Hi, everybody. Welcome to number 38. Tonight, of course, we have a massive amount of games. We have the Denver Nuggets. We have the Colorado Avalanche. I'm Shawn Drotar from Mile High Sports, host of Mile High Sports Today. Maybe you saw the new studio that we've built here permanently. So we're here every day from Monday through Friday. Joining me to talk about the Nuggets today, old school. We're going to old school there. Right. Jeff Morton from Denver Stiffs and the CSU podcast joining us. Jeff, thanks for coming out today.
Of course. It's nice to be here. I got to see the studio for the first time.
Yeah, so we'll record a lot. We're there every single day with the show live here, and now we have an opportunity to break down these games for you. We'll start with the Denver Nuggets, and then we'll get to the Avs a little bit closer to when that game begins. We'll bring in Nate Lundy and Brennan Vogt from Hockey Mountain High about that. But let's look at this game here. This was a game in game one where the Denver Nuggets, and they end up coming back from a 15-point deficit.
Right.
They win this game in overtime. And it's important not to take it for granted, Nuggets fans, because this Clippers team came into this series with an 18-3 record in their final 21. That's a quarter of the season. Right. This team plays well. They're veterans. We know about James Harden. We know about Kawhi Leonard. Right. And the Nuggets found a way to grind back. Coach David Adelman said that playing this game was like a slow march uphill.
Right. Kind of like Sisyphean, just pushing
the rock. Right.
And it was one of those games, and it was actually one of the few very entertaining games that we had the opening nights of the NBA. So it was good. You got everything. You got the full Russell Westbrook experience, which is always fun. Fun and agonizing. And it was interesting to see it. It was interesting to hold the kind of the ups, the downs. When the Nuggets started off inexplicably with the 3-2 zone, which is I don't know why they started off like that, but then when they adjusted and made that run midway through the second quarter, it really was a different game.
And that's the question. Let's start with a couple of those things. Let's unpack the slow start to game one, because slow starts have been a challenge for this team all year long. Right. And obviously, they're comfortable. They don't necessarily panic when they're down. Yep. They understand that they've made up a lot of these games. This was one of many games in playoffs in the last few years in which they've made up a 15-point deficit to win. But why does this team make it so hard on itself to start? These bad first periods are pretty regular for this team. It's almost like you want to remind them, make them think the game's starting a half hour earlier than it's starting, so they get their stride when they actually tip it off.
It's funny. They've been doing this all year, and obviously it's consistent with David Adelman or Michael Malone.
Right.
So it is something that is built into this team for whatever reason. They can't start off a game.
Yeah, that's a player thing, not a coach thing. Because I know people after the dismissal of Michael Malone talked about the idea that, maybe the coaching will change that. We're like, it turns out it doesn't. These are things where at a certain point you can change out the coaches, you can change all that, but players have to look themselves in the mirror and say, okay, what am I going to bring today? And I think what we're seeing here is for the Nuggets, this is more of a look in the mirror type of series for them than we switched out the coaches, switched out strategies.
Well, how
bad do you want it?
It was confronting that they had to have that happen. I don't necessarily think it changed fundamentally anything other than play harder. Right. I mean, it's literally the sum and total of it is play harder.
Which is what Michael Malone had complained about probably too many times in a year. We know that George Karl has talked about the idea that you can kind of use that maybe twice or three times in a season, and after that, the players will tune you out. That appears to be a little bit of what may have even happened in the Nuggets case, but the funny part is when we talk about it, Malone wasn't necessarily wrong.
Right.
Hey guys.
Hey, Nate.
I'm going to call an audible here real quick.
Yeah.
Do you know who's ready to join you live from Ball Arena right now?
Who is that?
Ryan Blackburn.
Let's
go live to Ball Arena and bring Ryan Blackburn in. Hey, Ryan, you're on with the guys now. I'm going to stop talking.
Hi, guys. I hope you can hear me reasonably well.
We can.
Yeah.
Ryan Blackburn with Mile High Sports and the host of the Pickaxe and Roll podcast. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, collaborations on the other side by our studio with four of the best craft breweries in Metro Denver, named after some of the shows, including our 20th and Blake podcast, the Scotia Buffalo podcast. So give those a try, by the way, over there on that other side. The Pickaxe and Roll is teaser. It's coming. Okay. You have to make these things. It's not, you can't microwave a good brew, guys.
Right.
But Ryan, now, this team, we were talking about this right before you came on. Obviously, it's great to get the game one win. They have an opportunity to really put the hammer down with a game two win tonight. But the slow starts have been a problem. When you look at the last game, what was the problem behind that slow start, and how do they avoid it happening again? Besides Jeff's very cogent suggestion of, play harder from the start.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Jeff's onto something there. That seems like a pretty good idea. Legitimately playing harder and playing a little bit more connected was a big deal. I also think there's kind of an economy of effort that you can put out there within a game, and especially for somebody like Jokic that is dealing with this as often as he is. He's being challenged on offense and defense for 40 to 42 minutes a night every single time, and so just not a surprise as we get our guy Anilo Piro waving in the background. As we get 40 to 42 minutes of Nikola Jokic, it is way easier to justify doing so in the second, third, and fourth quarter, bringing out as much effort as possible. So Denver, I think, should probably use a little bit more lax coverages, drop coverage on defense. They shouldn't be at the level as often. They shouldn't be pressuring the ball as often in those situations. They just have to play better in those situations a little bit. And I kind of assume that the Clippers are going to start most of these games ahead because they're going to be trying to make a statement, and Denver's going to be working from behind a lot of the time.
We know, and Jeff, I'll start with you on this. We got, as you put it, the Russell Westbrook experience, the good, the bad. You got all of it at once.
Right.
Ever since that 60-plus point triple-double in which Russell Westbrook kind of had a disastrous last 15 seconds of the game,
right.
A lot of fans have kind of fallen off, even though the truth of the matter is there's been issues with some of the things that Westbrook has done.
Right.
This team is not where they are without him, and they don't win game one without him.
No.
So if you're David Adelman, how do you use Westbrook, assuming that you get better performance from Michael Porter Jr. earlier in the game and you don't have to keep him out for 40 real-time minutes?
Right. I would say that you have to be as judicious as you possibly can. And I know that's easier said than done. You can't play him for prolonged stretches of time like you did in the first game, because it's going to catch up with you, as you saw in the game. Mm-hmm. So you need to pick your spots. And Ryan, I don't know if you have the same kind of thought here, but there's an expiration date on the craziness, and eventually it'll come back to haunt you if you rely on it too much.
I'd say so. It certainly feels like Denver. So they got every version of Russell Westbrook that they could possibly ask for in this last game. And unfortunately, they got enough of the good stuff that you were able to see why he's on the floor in clutch time. He's doing a lot of great defensive things. They don't win this game without Russell Westbrook. There's no doubt about it. But just the most important thing for Denver in general is that they have to keep the rotation and to keep as many guys that are playable as possible. And so when I'm thinking, I kind of think about Michael Porter Jr. in that, of course, but I also think about Peyton Watson, Jalen Pickett. Those guys can't fade into the background entirely in this situation. It can't just be Jokic, Murray, Brown, Aaron Gordon, Russell Westbrook all the time, because at some point that mix isn't going to work. At some point, somebody else is going to have to step up. So going to Russ over and over and over again, he is going to wear down at some points. He is going to make mistakes. There's going to be a moment where you're like, man, wish we really had that one back. So have to find more opportunities, I think, to be successful around him, not only because of him.
We're talking with Ryan Blackburn out at Blythe at Ball Arena prior to the Nuggets-Clippers game 2. And Ryan, let's start this one with you then. Let's go into Michael Porter Jr.'s game. He scores the first basket of the game for the Nuggets. It's the 3. That's the end of his scoring for the night. Had a handful of rebounds, just did not look entirely engaged. Nikola Jokic after the game talked about and I'm paraphrasing a bit, if you're not engaged, this probably isn't the job for you. But he was also very careful not to throw Porter Jr. under the bus and indicate, look, one game is one game. The next game is going to be the next game. They're these sort of self-contained things. So just flushing game 1 for Porter Jr., what does he need to do tonight in the early going to make sure that he can be impactful? Because it's pretty safe to assume, I think, with James Harden and with Kawhi Leonard, they're not going to have 20 turnovers again that hand the Nuggets 29 points in a game in which they win by 2.
Right.
Yeah, I would say so. The most important thing for Mike, in my opinion, is to understand the matchups, understand what his responsibility is in this case. If Kawhi Leonard is the guy who is guarding him, then you've done your job, right? Like you've done your job in terms of forcing the opposing team to respect you as much as they do, and to say, all right, we need to have that guy guard that guy. And that it was one of the reasons why Aaron Gordon was able to get free. It was one of the reasons why he was getting opportunities against James Harden throughout this game. They didn't trust James Harden, or no, they didn't trust Aaron Gordon to make those plays, and he made them. So if Kawhi then has to shift over to somebody like Aaron Gordon, that's when you have to start seeing Michael Porter get more aggressive. This is a push and pull that every team that has strengths and weaknesses has to deal with. The Clippers, they're trying to deal with having Norman Powell and James Harden in the starting lineup. The Nuggets are trying to deal with some defensive weaknesses of their own with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, and then Nikola Jokic when his effort isn't high. So that's just kind of how this is going to be. I think that in general, if Michael Porter isn't giving full effort on the defensive end, then he's not going to play. Like that's the most important thing outside of just spacing and making shots. If he's just spacing and taking opportunities, that's all you got to do.
Jeff, we know that depth is a problem on this team. And so if you're a coach, whether it's Michael Malone, whether it's David Adelman, at the NBA level, your only hammer is minutes.
Right.
And what Ryan is suggesting, I think, is the right thing to do. And I think Adelman did the right thing in the Game 1 win. Look, if you're not playing well, we'll find someone else who will. Unless, of course, your roster doesn't have that many options. And that's the challenge. It's not as if the Nuggets can't make a very deep run. They certainly can. But things have to go right. The path they have to walk is narrow.
Right.
And in this case, Michael Porter Jr. has to be a bigger contributor.
Well, I think they could start by getting some plays done where he can move. It's hard when you're your only floor spacer on the team, because really your job is to occupy gravity. You are there to hold whoever's on you.
Yes, so they're not collapsing on Jokic or Murray in the two-man game. Right.
So your opportunity / shot quality / any sort of ability to do what you can do is limited. Mostly, and it's highly hyper amplified with the Nuggets because they only have Mike as the floor spacer. He's the only one. No one's guarding Aaron Gordon. No one's guarding Christian Brown on the perimeter. Those guys, even though Aaron Gordon's shot the hell out of threes to this year, it's still no one guards him because he was wide open on that shot that got them within one in the fourth quarter, wide open. So I would say that they need to just kind of run a couple actions to get him involved, knowing that his job is going to be primarily to occupy whoever is on him as a floor spacer.
Ryan, does that make a lot of sense? The idea, can you envision a situation in which the Nuggets actually do make a focused effort on giving Porter Jr. a couple different looks, keeping him involved in the game, as opposed to doing what you and I have talked about on my show on LA Sports Today, the idea that in this offense, his role is to kind of stand out there, as Jeff said, suck away a little bit of the attention and catch and shoot threes. And I think that's where the fan expectation and maybe even MPJ's expectation is different, because if you're on offense, you really have sort of one role. Right. It is easy. It's sort of human nature to let the rest of it slide.
Oh, there's a balance there. And like, if he is doing the right things, you want to be able to get him some opportunities to keep him involved, to keep him engaged, and whatever it takes to kind of keep him doing those right things. That's the most important thing for Denver at this point. Well, actually, that's not true. The most important thing is for them to win the basketball game, and that's what David Adelman said at the presser today. It's no matter what happens, no matter who's closing them, like, he's going to play the guys that give them the best chance to win. And if that is not Michael Porter, then it's not Michael Porter. But it's going to be interesting to see how he handles it. It's going to be interesting to see how the Nuggets handle it. They should try to get him more involved. They should try to scheme in some things. But overall, like, Denver's going to go to the Jokic Murray two-man game. You guys know this. I know this. Everybody in the world knows this. And if they if Michael Porter's job in that case is to space. That's just what he's out there to do. So if he can do that, and if they respect him, then great. If the value of him being out there is higher than the defensive issues that he kind of brings to the table that Russell Westbrook actually covers up, then we'll see how that goes. But it's an ongoing discussion throughout this entire series.
Ryan, what do you think, if you're the Nuggets, what should you expect the Clippers to do differently in this game? Or do you think they look at what they did and figure, if we just take better care of the ball, we would have won game one?
Well, they'll try to get Norman Powell going a little bit better. He only had 12 points on 12 shots. I think they're going to try to get Kawhi Leonard more shots. The proportion of shots there is a little bit different than I think that they were envisioning. I think it was 22 shots for Harden, along with some free throws, and then Kawhi had 15 total shots. Probably need to be a little bit different there. And then if they can't get Norman Powell going, then Nicholas Batum is going to play even more. He played 24 minutes. He was very good for them. He's a guy that can space. He's a guy that can do a lot of the details on the defensive end. Just a really, really impressive mix for a role player and somebody that Denver's going to have to figure out how to handle. But I got to bounce, guys. We're about to get started over here for some things. So I got to take care of some stuff.
All right, Ryan, thanks so much for stopping in. Have a good night, and we'll catch you later. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Jeff, Norman Powell, now Kawhi Leonard did not face the Denver Nuggets in their 4 regular season matchups. Norman Powell did, and he averaged 27.8 points a game against the Nuggets. So you have to probably assume that he will be more productive in this game because he has been.
Yes. It was interesting how little they used him on the threes. Early in the season, Norman Powell was averaging about 30 points on the Nuggets, and he was shooting crazy efficiency on threes.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing is very valuable for a team like the Clippers who don't shoot a lot of threes like the Nuggets. So I would look for them to actually not emphasize on Kawhi Leonard so much, who will get his no matter what, but to get Norm Powell as many three-point shots as they can, because that is one area where the Nuggets struggle. And if they get outshot tremendously at three, they tend to not win.
Yeah, it can be just a numbers game. It's just a shot attempts game, which the Nuggets won handily in game one. So when you take a look at, let's look at the last part in Nikola Jokic. Ivica Zubac, one of the contenders, along with Christian Brown for most improved player. Zubac, via ESPN research since Jokic came into the league, there's only been 20 players who have been guarding him in more than 100 shot attempts over the course of his career as the closest defender. Zubac, out of those 20, is the only player in the NBA who has held Jokic to 45% or lower in the playoffs and the regular season. Now, he was at an even 50% in game one, but Zubac is one of those guys that can give Jokic a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, he does. And I think it's knowing how to play Jokic. They're fellow Balkans.
Not afraid of bodying him up, not afraid of the physicality.
Yeah, they have a relationship there, so they kind of know. I think that helps. Jokic still gives him a lot of points, and I'm not necessarily worried about that. All he is there to do is to occupy Jokic and get what he can on the offensive end. And then hopefully exploit Jokic-less lineups, because outside of him, the Clippers have zero size.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jeff, we're going to switch over to the Avalanche in a moment, but your feeling about tonight, do they get it done? The percentage of teams, home or away, when you go up 2-0 in the first round, it's really, really promising.
I think both the Avs and the Nuggets win.
Okay. Yeah, I feel good about the Nuggets' chances as well. We'll have a chance to talk more about it. Anybody here? I know there's some people here at 38. See a lot of those Avalanche uniforms. You will probably be very happy to know, as we get Nate Lundy and Brennan voted from Hockey Mountain High, that Gabe Landeskog will be in the lineup tonight. He'll take the place of Ross Colton, who suffered a lower body injury in game one. So the captain is back. We'll have a chance to talk about that. He's Jeff Morton. I'm Shawn Drotar. This is Mile High Sports.
When I go to court, these aren't my clients. These are my friends. These are people that I believe in. And they have one shot, just one shot for justice. If they've come to me and we've gotten to trial, their life has been turned upside down in some awful way. And I am their only hope. I need to be their champion, to quote Prince Oberyn from Game of Thrones. They need someone in this trial by combat that can fight for them. I'm all they have. So if I haven't put the time in, if I haven't trained, if I haven't humbly looked in the mirror and thought about ways I can be better, and I don't present my best self in court, then I failed them. And that's what motivates me as a trial lawyer, because when this is over, that client goes home. And if I haven't done my best for him, I haven't been his champion, then I've failed.
Side Nate Lundy, my normal radio broadcast partner with Miley Sports Today.
Hi,
Brennan
everybody.
Vogt from Hockey Mountain High. And guess what? I accidentally misled you. More accurately, the Avalanche, Jared Bednar did. Now, all of a sudden, in just the last couple of moments, Gabriel Landeskog has been scratched from the game. So with that, the late game time decision of talking about Landeskog in the lineup, then Landeskog out of the lineup, Brennan, it appears that the Avalanche, who have to be able to take advantage of a loophole in the CBA, they can now exceed the salary cap to have Gabriel Landeskog on the ice because of the way that the salary cap works. The Avalanche seem to be more than content with playing a little last-second mind games, not only with the Stars, but with all of us as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think this is just a morale boost for Game 2. And then I think they're going to blow the top off of RiNo Game 3.
Yeah, we talked about this on Saturday, Nate, the idea that Landeskog was going to make his debut in Game 3. That obviously appears to be the case as he scratched from tonight's line. But the idea of getting Gabe Landeskog back, having him active, even as a healthy scratch, this is something you and I have talked about. It is still impactful to have the captain who's been out for 3 years in the room with the guys in a game, which, by the way, we talked about it with Jeff, but in the NHL, when a road team goes up 2-0 in a series, they win that series 87% of the time.
Yeah,
Tremendous opportunity for the Avs.
I still would be a lot happier if you were playing tonight. And the reason I say that is because I would like to see them get this part of his return out of the way. Because the Avs faithful, if he is not a scratch on Wednesday night, will absolutely blow the roof off of Ball Arena. It will happen. And I think Gabe knows how to handle it. It's why he wears the C. It's why he's worn the C for so long. But I also believe there's something to be said about getting that sort of out of the way, getting it over with.
There's an argument
and doing
for that.
and doing it on the road, and then allowing him to come back, because it's not about the fans. Okay, right. It's about him. It's about the lines. It's about the combinations. It's what Bednar wants to be able to do. So, to me, I would not be doing that in the home game and adding all of that additional stuff to it. That's just me. But I'm going to defer to the guy that has won a Stanley Cup as opposed to the guy that has one of the replica banners behind me at my desk, right? It's like this big. It's not really a real one. That's as close as I've come to the cup.
It's a good argument because on the road, there are fewer distractions.
Yes.
Right? There are fewer distractions from the fans. There are fewer distractions around the area. You're not going to have as many people there.
Let's be honest. Even the Stars fans tonight would have applauded the fact that he was back on the ice. The hockey fans get what he has been through for 3 years.
And I will say that I prefer him being scratched, Brennan, and I'll say why. Because I fully expect the Dallas Stars to play the most physical hockey game that they will play in the series tonight. And I don't necessarily need to see Gabe Landeskog after 3 years away with basically a kind of a new type of knee cartilage surgery replacement that no one's ever had except Lonzo Ball in the NBA. I don't need to see him in this game making your first NHL playoff action in 3 years against a team that is looking to absolutely clobber the Avalanche every time they go up against the boards.
Well, and they got ran over physically in Game 1.
Right.
And so this is going to be Dallas's chance to run back over, and they're going to let Jamie Benn loose, and they're going to let Rantanen's going to have a hissy fit because he got beat up the whole game. So it's everything that they're dreaming of, just to come back and win in their own building. They're not going to want to come out of their own building down 2-0. And then I'm going to reference back to the weekend that Landeskog played in Loveland.
Mm-hmm.
That you could tell he was hungry, but he was being patient, and he knew when it was going to be his time. In fact, I
think he knows that. I think that's part of wearing the C.
I think also part of that is understanding. Look, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well,
they just won Game 1. He wasn't on the ice. You know what? Okay, he doesn't have to be there.
And I mean, I got a chance to actually ask him, what was it like scoring your first goal again? And he said it's just being part of the atmosphere again. It's being part of a tight hockey game, competitive, getting to compete again, and having the trust of the coach to put you back on the ice. He hasn't had that in 3 years.
Right.
just not right now.
Well, and I think, like Shawn, to piggyback on that, it's not just the fact that he didn't necessarily have he talked about having the trust of the coach to put him on the ice. He hasn't had the trust in his own body.
Correct.
He hasn't had the trust, let alone a third party, let alone somebody outside of himself to have that trust.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know if you need him out there getting thumped all night, although I like your point about being on the road. But this particular matchup, I think, is challenging. Let's talk about some of the guys that are on the ice. That top line for the Avalanche, very, very effective in game one, skating very effectively. Shot chances created for that line, 22, and we know Nathan McKinnon had 2 of those. Even that line only allowed 8. And Mikko Rantanen was part of that. Now maybe a little bit of a shift there in the way DeBoer's approaching it, because they tried that strength against strength. And for the Stars, they weren't ready for it.
No, they weren't. And you had people like Lehkonen going straight towards the net. And even if it's a goofy goal, he's going to be start going towards the net. Lehkonen needed something like that last game.
Yeah.
And what was it, 14 games?
I think that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, 13, 14 games that he broke that dry spout.
And that's always the way it goes, right? It's not going to be some gorgeous highlight reel. It's going to be the one where you're falling back and it bounces off your skate.
Well, sure. And even if it's not that, even if it's arguably one of the flukiest goals that we've seen the Avs score in a long time, it's a matter of something that, Shawn, you and I talked about earlier on MHS Today, that you can't – my biggest criticism of the Patrick Waugh coached teams was that they kept waiting for the perfect goal. They kept waiting for the perfect shot. They kept waiting. They would sit there and dance around. They would get stick happy. They would get skate happy, and they would not actually just pepper the net. And that is something I think that we saw yesterday, because if you look even at the disparity between the shots on goal and the attempted shots by the Avs, they were just going to pepper Ottinger. They were going to keep going at it, and they were going to hope that they could get a rebound. Now, does Nate still sometimes get happy feet? Yes, he does. He does. But I think that the more that they can continue to push it towards the pipes, force Ottinger to make a wild save, the better off this team is going to be. By the way, Montreal just tied it behind us.
But so there has been at times with the Avs to overskate, to play with their food, for lack of a better term. That's okay when you're playing the bottom. This is a team that had a better record than you did, and you're in their barn. So you have to be able to be a little more aware and realize that the shots are important, even if they're not high quality, because rebounds matter. I'll equate it to baseball. I played baseball, and I was obviously not a power hitter. But I remember I had a skipper tell me flat out, I don't care if you hit a 4-hopper to the shortstop, because you can still run to first. That's effort. But the shortstop has to pick it. He has to make a throw across the field. First baseman has to catch it clean. They have to do something.
Well, there's too many things that can go wrong.
Force them to do something, right, and things can go wrong. The Avs at times, and my worry at times is when they play well, the next time they lean into that a little bit too much. And I want to make sure that they strip this thing down like an acoustic set. Just play your game, go at the net, get the net front presence with Lehkonen, with Nichushkin, take your chances.
Well, and then you had depth that was coming through the lineup. O'Connor had his first multi-game playoff, multi-point playoff performance in all the playoffs that he's played in. I mean, he's been in how many games for the playoffs, and this was his first. So they're clicking in ways that we're not even comprehending right now.
Yeah, Nate, we talked about it on the show. 12 different Avalanche skaters notched points in game one. So when you can roll line after line after line, and you can get productivity from all of them, it gives you a very good opportunity against any team. Because, look, any team, especially when you're on the road, and they get the last change, they can start stacking. And this is actually what's sort of been the problem for the Avs in recent years. You had scoring on the top, almost all the scoring was on the top line, and then a little bit concentrated on the second line. But if either of those two lines did not have a good night, the Avs were eminently beatable. Now, all of a sudden, the points don't have to come from Nathan McKinnon. They can come from Logan O'Connor. They can come from the occasional Parker Kelly. They can come from Charlie Coyle. These are the kind of situations that I think make this version of the Avalanche immensely dangerous when they're right.
Now, I want to flip over to Dallas real quick. I'm very curious to see what DeBoer does as we go through today's game, as well as moving forward to Game 3 on Wednesday.
And that'll be heavily dependent on the result.
I think it's going to depend a lot there. It's going to depend on the continued status of Heiskanen, guys like that, okay? But we talked about the physicality of Jamie Benn. And if Ben's going to be on a line with Mikko, Rantanen. Mikko's not a physical guy. He's not. And I don't know. There's part of me that thinks that he needs to be considering getting Mikko up. And like as soon as Dallas did the trade, I expected to see Mikko Rantanen on a line with Matt Duchene. I'll be honest. I expected the two of them to be on the same line because I think that Dutchie is the kind of guy that can create. And I think that Mikko plays off of that. I think that's why he was so good for so long with McKinnon and with everybody that has been a part of this Avs team. And DeBoer hasn't done that yet.
Yeah.
And he might not. He may have his own reasons. And again, these guys know more about hockey than I ever will. But that is a line combination that I am surprised I haven't seen yet.
I think some of that, and Brennan, let's talk about that. I think some of that has to do, oddly, even though it's the forward lines.
And the reason I'm bringing it up is because it could be something the Avs have to face. Maybe not, but I'm just bringing it up.
I think some of this actually comes from the absence of Miro Heiskanen, who's a puck-moving defenseman, and he sets them up. When he's not there, now it feels like DeBoer has maybe trying to grasp at straws to try to get some puck movement moving. This team has dropped in the number of shot attempts that they have created, dropped the number of shot attempts they've allowed. Losing Heiskanen has really changed all of the geometry of the way they play in the offensive zone. And it feels like DeBoer, even in game 2, is maybe trying to find something. But if you're the Avs, you can't assume anything. This is a coach that's beaten you 3 different times with 3 different franchises, so he certainly can do it. But it did seem, I was very surprised. In fact, Nate, you and I were watching this game here at number 38. I think at one point late in the second period, I asked you if you heard Mikko Rantanen's name. He was invisible in game 1.
Yeah, but he can be physical at times. Is it rare? Yes.
Yeah.
He's not a physical player.
And he's not a forechecker.
Yeah, he's not a forechecker.
Exactly.
He's not a back checker. He can play with the speed.
And so I understand. Like for me, it's like I understand why then you would put him with Jamie Benn, right? Because you want some physicality on the ice. When I think about the way that Duchene moves around the ice and the way that Mikko moves around the ice, I'm just surprised that I haven't seen those two together.
I am too.
Well, that and they've played with each other before, but Duchene's played with how many teams between then and now? So, but
Duchene is also having one of his best years that he's had. I mean, he's had a spectacular year for Dallas.
And like we talked about with the Avs, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Duchene's had a good year with the line mates he's had.
Okay. And DeBoer may be trying to spread that speed out.
Right.
Because, like you said, Heiskanen's out of the lineup.
And remember, their top goal scorer, Jason Robertson, is also out of the lineup.
Yeah, touche.
So, if you're DeBoer, that's a tough hand that you just got dealt.
But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, do you continue to spread, to your point, Brennan, do you continue to spread some of that speed out? And do you continue to spread some of that out across the lines? Or do you push your chips in on one line? And you say, we want to get out here and we want to cause the Avalanche problems by giving as much strength as we can on the ice at once just to try to break through. Because remember, they only got past Mackenzie Blackwood once on Saturday night. And you're going to win a game against the Avs. I'm sorry, you got to score 4 goals. You do. You got to score 4 because the Avs are good for 3 pretty much every night. They're going to find a way to score 3 goals. So if you're Dallas, you got to find a way to do 4. And I'm concerned that if you're a Dallas fan, and I'm not, obviously, that what he's doing and try to spreading it out is giving him a whole bunch of B to B- lines as opposed to an A+.
Well, yeah, and then my experience when I was a hockey captain, which pales in comparison to being an NHL coach or anything like that. But I always tried to spread my talent out. Come at them with all 4 lines instead of just one line. If you can come at them with one line, then they can take it easy on the other 3 lines. Yeah. So come at them with that 4 lines. You're going to have to worry about 1 or 2 players on each line, and they get worn out on every single line. If you push it all up to the top 2 or the top 2 lines or the top line, they're not going to be able to push through. And I think that's what Dallas has tried to do the last game.
Yeah, which is what we talked about, what the Avalanche have been doing in previous years that ended with them out of the playoffs.
It had to, yeah.
Peter DeBoer talked after the game in game 1 and asked what was the difference between this Avalanche team and basically I'm paraphrasing, but he said they didn't have Mackenzie Blackwood. Mackenzie Blackwood got his first career playoff win, his first career playoff game. He played extremely well in this game. And for the Avalanche, I'm aware of their scoring capability, but I think they have to be a little bit more responsible and not expect Blackwood to pull on the Patrick Waugh jersey like he did at times in game one.
Yeah, he I think was able to kind of zone out, do everything that he's done all year, and he even said it in a post-game interview with I think Henrik Lundqvist. That he's like, it's just another game. There's a lot more intensity into it, but they've got to clean up the garbage in front of him, and they've got to get the puck out from the crease.
Well, and look, you know, hockey, baseball, all the sports have the law of averages, right? There's statistical numbers that exist over the course of an 82 game season, and so he gave up 1 goal. That's not his season average, as we know, right? So that tells me that you're going to have a game. Maybe it's tonight. Maybe it's game 3. Maybe it's game 5. I don't know. But there will be a game where there is a negative regression within his numbers, just because that's hockey. That's baseball. This is why we keep stats. That's why there are averages. That's Rafael Devers of the Boston Red Sox starting off the year with 10 strikeouts or whatever the heck it was that he went. I mean, he was awful. And now all of a sudden, forever. Right. And now all of a sudden, in the last week and a half, he's remembered how to hit the ball. Well, of course he did. He's Rafael Devers. And so the same positive improvement that we saw with a guy on the baseball diamond, you have to expect at some point, and I hope it's not the case, but I'm going to play the numbers game, and it's going to say Mackenzie Blackwood's not going to hold these guys to just 1 goal. Well, and if you're the Avalanche, you have to assume that, right? I mean, you can't place that expectation on your goaltender, and Brennan made that point. So I would expect, Nate, given the fact they are somewhat limited in their puck movement without Heiskanen, they don't have their leading goal scorer. But I think if I was Pete DeBoer, I'm looking at what that game happened, and I'm thinking a little what you did. I'm sending everybody at the net. I'm crashing the net. I'm looking for rebounds, because until the Avalanche look a little bit more responsible in clearing the zone and not focusing purely on the offensive breakout, if I'm the Stars, I look at that and say, okay, guys, I know we're shorthanded, but that's the way we can win. Because if they're not going to be very careful in their own zone, we're going to take those little rebounds. We're going to chunk a couple past them. Well, and you know me, Shawn, I just sit there and hold my breath and wait for Sam Girard to screw up and turn the puck over, because he will at some point, and he might do it tonight. He might do it multiple times tonight. Every now and then he looks spectacular. I like him too, but that man gives me heartburn on a consistent basis. The Habs and the Caps are about to go to overtime. We got 4.3 seconds left. We got a tie game 2-2. Montreal's managed to put 2 goals on the board in the third period. So we are going to wind up with the early game going long. And there's nothing better than Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, we watched that the Winnipeg game where St. Louis basically had them, and then Bolduc makes a very, very stupid penalty to where Jim Montgomery, their head coach, literally has his head in his hands with his lap, knowing that I can't believe my guy just did that, and it ends up costing them essentially the game. Winnipeg scrapes, fights back, and they get that win, and that may turn the whole series. And now it is remarkable. Out of all of the playoffs that there are great playoffs in every sport. There is just nothing like the Stanley Cup playoffs, because each and every one of those games is its own little universe unto itself that feels like the other games that happened before it barely impacted whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree.
Hi, Rachel. Rachel, who does a lot of our social media work, goes, "Hey, I've got that same shirt." There you go. Well, of course, Nate has the shirt. Yeah. Of course, I have the shirt. Right. Our good friend Terry Walsh, we were at one of the Avs games together, and he goes, "If you don't buy that, you're an idiot." And I said, "All right, well, I'm kind of an idiot anyway, Terry, but that makes it even easier then. Thanks for doing that. All right, we have got our contest underway, so we're going to wrap it up. We're going to have some fun here at number 38. Remember, you're looking for a spot to be able to watch both games. We got them across all the TVs tonight. Exactly. Avs-Stars are underway. All right, go Avs. Thanks for the time. Make sure you take care of your bartenders. They're taking care of you. Thanks for joining us today. Enjoy the game.